Hello, everyone. Welcome to Random Encounter 325 or 325. Well, last week was kind of nuts, wasn't it? This is Jono, Logan, and I am not even remotely recovered yet from not E3 2025. There were so many game announcements. There were so many game trailers that we were keeping up with. I watched so many shows. If you haven't listened to it yet, go back, take a listen to last week's episode. We cover pretty much the entire weekend with a focus, of course, on our coverage. So RPGs and adventure games and such. But here's the thing. The news keeps marching on. So we keep marching on as well, no matter how tired we are. And there was a big story that happened last week, a very big story that happened last week that we didn't really cover because, not E3. And that was the release of a brand new console. And that was the Switch 2. The Switch 2 has been anticipated for literally years. The number of times I've said on this podcast, how does it run in regards to Switch 2 games is exhaustive, and I'm tired of saying it. And thankfully, it doesn't look like I'll ever have to say it again, or at least not for years. So we want to cover the Switch 2 today. We wanted to talk about it a little bit because, like I said, Naughty 3 sucked up all of the oxygen in the room. So this is the second episode, 2 weeks in a row. After this, of course, there'll be a rhythm, and then we'll be back to our usual bi-weekly schedule. But joining us today are two folks who have the Switch 2 in their hands, and that is Tom.
Hi there.
And Paul.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah, so the Switch 2. When did you two tell me what your process was of getting these consoles? Neither of you got like a staple through the screen, did you?
No, I did see that, but no, mine was. The actual pre-order process was quite simple for me. I got an email from Nintendo. I was really lucky. I don't know if they were maybe a bit more available in the UK, but I got an email. Pre-order process was really simple. Turned up on release day. No dramas for me. So no staples through the screen.
Well, that's thankful.
Yeah, I was absolutely mortified to hear that story about the staple through the screen. I mean, there was a midnight launch as well, I think, wasn't it? Which I've got to admit, I have a bit of regret because we don't get much opportunity for midnight launches now. I think the last one I did was like Halo 3, and that's a while ago. But as Tom said, in the UK, I think it was fairly easy. I actually had several opportunities where I was like vacillating between getting the standard pack and getting Mario bundled in, which I wasn't keen on. Not really a big digital person, so I went for the standard one in the end. But a couple of days after I made my choice, then it did start to lock down a little bit in the UK. I took the day off work for the launch day and sat patiently waiting for it to arrive. I finished Final Fantasy 2 in the morning, weirdly.
Sorry, which Final Fantasy 2? Final Fantasy 2 or Final Fantasy 4?
The Final Fantasy 2.
The actual one, okay.
Yeah, the actual one, yeah. It arrived, as Tom said, no drama in the afternoon. Fantastic.
Sounds like you had a slightly less stressful launch day than me. Mine arrived and I had a driving test in the afternoon. I was like, I'm not opening it until after the test. But it all worked out in the end, so no complaints.
That's some willpower right there.
Yeah.
I don't have one yet. I probably won't get one until Christmas this year. I'm obviously getting one. And the nice thing is, maybe this will be different at Christmas, but the nice thing is right now, availability is actually very, very good. If you want a Switch 2, apparently it's not that difficult to get your hands on a Switch 2. And that's even more impressive considering that this thing has been racking up sales records. Thus far, it looks to be one of the most successful console launches of all time. Now, that being said, I recall similar things being said about the Wii U, which is in many ways very similar to the Switch 2. It doesn't just rhyme. In that it is a second version of an already incredibly popular console. So there are a lot of parallels here between the Wii U and the Switch 2. And my hope is that those parallels rapidly start diverging from each other, which, based on what I've heard, could be the case. So let's talk a little bit about the console itself. So as everyone knows, if you're listening to this, you know what the damn thing looks like, probably. It's the successor to the original Nintendo Switch. It's bigger. It has a 7.9-inch LCD screen with HDR. The Joy-Cons, instead of mechanically connecting, they are now magnetically connected. There's improved base storage of 256 gigabytes. It's just a bigger console, and the kickstand on the back opens wider than before. And it basically, if you look at this thing and you didn't know better, you'd say, oh, that's a that's a Switch. But we do know better. It's a Switch 2. And there are some other upgrades. The screen is 1080p up from 720. It performs better when docked. Even the dock actually even has a fan in it now to help cool it down. And other things, custom NVIDIA chip. So a lot more graphical horsepower, which, thank God. There's a dedicated chat button on the controllers now. So Nintendo is catching up to what PC people have known since 2005. And last but not least, there is a bunch more USB-C ports, one on the top and one at the bottom, which is fantastic. What were your first impressions when you opened it up? Because I know, Tom, you know what a Switch looks like. Paul, this is actually your first Switch, right?
This is the first one that belongs to me. That's right. Yeah. So far, whenever I've been doing reviews or anything like that, I've actually borrowed my wife's Switch. So yeah, this is my first one that I can call my own.
Is your wife's name Sam?
Yes.
Okay, that makes more sense, because whenever I looked at chat and you'd be saying, I borrowed it from Sam, I was like, really? You and Sam live really close together? That's interesting.
Yeah, we're hanging out all the time, No, yeah, so...
This makes considerably more sense now. Yeah. Okay, yes, borrowing your wife's Switch seems to be a very, something partners should do for each other. Partners let their other partner play their Switch.
I'm very grateful to her, absolutely. Yeah, but no need anymore.
Yeah, now I get a Switch too. She's going to have to borrow it from you.
Yeah, there is that. Yeah, I'm a bit worried about that conversation going forwards, but yeah, I'm sure it'll be fine.
No, it's mine. Tom, what were your impressions on the differences between the two consoles?
So I had the OLED, and I'll be honest, I'm a bit of a Nintendo fanboy. I knew I was going to buy the system regardless, and I hadn't really looked too in detail at like any sort of like previews or anything like that. I was just like, I'm happy. I know I'm getting one. But immediately on opening the box, I think what surprised me a bit was traditionally Nintendo's consoles have felt, in the nicest way, a bit toy-like. I feel like a bit like quite often they have that shiny plastic, and you can tell, Nintendo's a bit more aimed at kids. But the Switch 2 feels a lot more like a premium console, I'd say. I mean, I think you take it out of the box and it does, I know there was a lot of controversy around the price, but it does feel like a £400 system. It feels significantly more solid than the previous Switch, I think. It's got more of a matte finish, which I think looks a lot nicer.
It's amazing what a matte finish will do.
Yeah, no, it is. And surprisingly, I think the biggest thing for me is with the Switch, the original Switch, like we say, that the performance in docked wasn't significantly better. And in fact, for most of its life cycle, and especially towards the end, I didn't actually even have a HDMI plugged into my dock because I just always played it handheld. I found with the dock significantly improves with the Switch 2, and I found I played a lot more in docked mode.
It's interesting you say toy-like there, Tom, because the last Nintendo, I'm the opposite of a Nintendo fanboy, and the last Nintendo console I had was the GameCube. So a long time ago, and yeah, that looks like a tiny little Duplo brick or a Lego brick, whatever you want to say. It's got a handle, doesn't it? So who takes that round with them? I don't know.
Lots of people did back then.
Did they? I do.
Yeah, pardon me casting my mind back to 25 years ago. The nice thing about the GameCube was it had the 4 ports on it, which meant that it made multiplayer games much, much easier to play. Now, mind you, this Nintendo 64 also did, but I think that multiplayer gaming started coming into its own in a variety of different ways in the period of the GameCube, both on PC and on other consoles. So yeah, the portability of taking it around and bringing it to parties and things like that so everyone can plug in their controllers and play was a big thing back then. But you are 100% right. It looks like a toy.
Yeah, that's true. No, I think I just played Resident Evil on my own in the dark, so I didn't need the handle. But
edgelord,
braver than me.
Sitting in the dark in the early 2000s playing Resident Evil.
Absolutely blaring some metalcore or something like that.
Well, you can catch up now with the library on the Switch 2.
I know, that's fantastic, isn't it? And obviously, Wind Waker was one. It's like full circle again. Wind Waker was one of my first games on the GameCube. I don't know when it came out during the lifespan, but that was obviously a big moment. And now for it to come back in the way it has, although I know it's a version without a few quality of life features that people would enjoy. But yeah, have the opportunity to get back to that later on is something I'm really look forward to. But yeah, so the main point, Tom's absolutely right. It does look the new Switch way more modern, really sleek, really nice, and the magnetic Joy-Con grips are absolutely fantastic. My family have just been obsessed with them, snapping them on, snapping them off. And it actually makes it is great fun, and it actually makes the noise now properly.
Oh, that's exciting! Yeah, I hear that it's very fidget toy like.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. Actually, I have sat there for many times, just on off. It's quite.
It's what you were saying about this console, Tom. It's interesting. I know it's not. I know it is a brand new console, but based on the aesthetics of it, the matte finish, the fact it doesn't look like a toy, it kind of reminds me of what I assumed the Switch Pro, if the Switch Pro ever actually existed, would have been like. Now, mind you, that never existed.
I think Digital Foundry are convinced that the Switch 2 was the Switch Pro that was being reported about. That leaked information about this unit. It's basically, that's what it was. I
believe that. I mean, obviously things have evolved since then, and the original plan has changed, and probably the hardware too has changed since then. NVIDIA's custom chip is actually relatively impressive for the size of it, but Nintendo did have how can I say this? It seemed like they had a plan that was coming out. They released the Switch, and then they released the Nintendo Switch Lite, which many people love because a lot of people only play the Switch in handheld mode. I do tend to be a dock player, so I had no interest in that, but that was very, very popular. And then in 2021, I believe they released the OLED version, which I guess was their equivalent of the Switch Pro. And people were like, wow, this feels like it should be more. And from the sounds of it, it was originally meant to be more. So yeah, it's not surprising to me that Nintendo pivoted and evolved a Pro design. Theoretically, we have no confirmation in this, but evolved their Pro design into a successor console.
Yeah, I think it must have been some sort of. I think what we got with the Switch 2 must have been more than what they were planning for the Switch Pro. Only because I can't see them running what if it was the same power. I can't see them having quite such a significant split within one console generation. So, because the Switch 2, it is significantly more powerful, and you notice it when you play games.
Thank God.
I just can't see them doing that and trying to run it on the original Switch model at the same time.
Yeah, it is, but it's giving me that feel. It does give me that PlayStation 5 kind of feeling, and not in terms of the power. Obviously, they're not directly equivalent, but I mean in terms of in the early years of the PlayStation 5, and even to a certain extent, even now, all of the cross-gen titles, and what we're getting on Switch now, couple of original things, but a lot of cross-gen titles again.
Yeah, the model has really changed from what it was in prior console releases, where now cross-compatibility is just such it's not even a demanded feature. It's just, if it's not there, you're going to be punished for it.
Yeah, especially with that install base that the Switch One has. They just can't ignore that, can they, I think? And but that's, yeah, it does give me that feeling that of a souped up version of what came before.
See, I think that's my concern about this console, and a lot of people have said a lot of things about the Wii U, but I think that the Wii U followed a very predictable path of product development, which is the follow-up to your most successful product almost always falls short to the most successful product. I think the best example of this is actually Microsoft. You can see this with that version of Windows sucks, that version of Windows is good cycle. Like, people, when they hit a really big success and people invest in that success, it can be really, really hard to move on from that success, especially if you are creating iteration of the original product, which obviously every version of Windows is an iteration of the previous one. The Wii U was an iteration of the Wii, and the Switch 2 is an iteration of the Switch. So it will be interesting to see if that follows, if they can expand the install base of the Switch 2 to the point where it can overtake the original Switch as the console of choice for people.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right as well. And that Nintendo themselves have a lot of precedent, even outside of the successor from Wii to Wii U, for them to go to from strength to not so strong. I mean, if you look at the DS, sold like absolute gangbusters, and the 3DS didn't do badly, but again, it didn't sell as well as before it. The GameCube did not sell as well as the N64. So it's definitely something to consider. And I think, like you say, at the moment, if you're not a Mario Kart fan, there's not a massive reason to get the Switch 2, but it does seem to be selling well at the start. So hopefully that's a good sign. But
yeah, referring to I think it's Did You Know Gaming, the YouTube channel, did a really good piece on this recently, and they're great, and they it really goes back to what you were saying about the Wii U, Jono. That they said, what are we looking at now? Obviously, from the looks of it, the greatest, or at least fastest selling console launch maybe of all time. But is that going to be a sustained momentum, or are we looking at people like Tom and I, and no doubt a load of the listeners, hardcore gaming enthusiasts, maybe hardcore Nintendo enthusiasts, buying it immediately? Will that keep going after that first rush of buyers is over, or are we looking at Wii U type situation, which I think had a similar kind of trajectory to that, and huge hit and then no tailwind after it?
It's a balancing act, I imagine, for these companies, in the sense that they know for a fact that if they do not have cross-compatibility with the console, and they don't continue to support the previous console, that they are going to get a massive backlash from consumers. The media will run stories about it, etc. But at the same time, by doing that, you are intentionally undercutting the appeal of your new product. There is a very, very old video about the release of the Super Nintendo system. And there's a woman, I think she's in a Walmart, and the news is interviewing her, and they say, well, will you be buying your child a new Super Nintendo? And she says, no, absolutely not. And I think this is a good learning experience to him, to tell him why companies do this kind of thing, and they release a new update. So you have to intentionally buy all the stuff for the new update, and it's just a ripoff. And I mean, I was looking at that and I was like, well, clearly this woman does not know what the hell she's talking about. She doesn't understand that, like, obviously the Nintendo system can't play the games that the Super Nintendo did. The technology marches onward. However, that mindset has greatly influenced game development companies since. And now that woman doesn't have a complaint, because like she doesn't need to buy her child a Super Nintendo / Switch 2, because all of the games will likely be cross-compatible for up to a year, 2 years. I mean, if you're the friggin' PlayStation 5, they're still cross-compatible in some cases. I wanted to ask you, Tom, specifically about something that it's on my mind as probably the only downgrade of the Switch 2 that I can see. Because, I mean, everything else I look at and I was like, this is great. This looks fantastic. This looks like everything we were asking for. The only downgrade in my mind is that this has a LCD. It does not have an OLED screen. The OLED Switch kind of became the default Switch in recent years. So the fact that they moved from OLED to LCD, to be fair, it sounds like it's a very good, display. It's, HDR. It's like lots of good stuff. But it's not OLED, so it doesn't have the same level of contrast. What are your thoughts on that as compared to your Switch?
I'll be honest, like you say, I was a little bit disappointed when that was announced. I think obviously the OLED was really, really stunning screen, but actually having it in my hands, it's not a huge downgrade, I would say. I think the HDR more than makes up for it. The screen is really nice, and obviously it's 1080p, which does make a difference. So in all honesty, I think it's less of an issue than I expected it to be. Obviously, it would have been nice for it to be OLED. I think everyone would have liked that. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's something I'll dwell on for too long.
Okay, well, that's actually reassuring to hear. There are a whole bunch of peripherals for this that have come out, many of which also existed for the original Switch. The most obvious one, of course, being the Pro Controller. I have to say that the Switch Pro Controller is one of my two favorite controllers of all time. I love the feel of the Pro Controller. 8BitDo's Pro 2 is probably my second favorite, but yeah, the Switch controller is just awesome. This looks like it is a minimal evolution of the Switch Pro Controller, but in a lot of ways they push it forward. I just want one. It looks like a gorgeous controller.
Yeah, I've got it in my hands actually, like right now. It is really nice. Like you, I really like the original Switch one. But I do actually prefer this one. I have slightly smaller hands than maybe the average person, and I do think this new controller is slightly smaller. So that's quite nice for someone like me. I don't think it would be a major issue for anyone else, though, to be honest. I think the only downgrade I would say is that what I really liked about the original Switch One Pro controller is that the hand grips had sort of this sort of like little indent pattern on them, which was quite a nice grip. This is like a smooth matte plastic, so it's not quite as grippy, which I guess isn't the end of the world, but it was a nice touch with the old one.
I hear it's slightly heavier as well, like just not like heavy, but like slightly heavier.
Yeah, maybe not noticeably. It feels really nice and solid. Less clicky, I would say. It's still got a very nice D-pad, and it's got, not that I can really say I've experienced it too much, but it apparently does have a new rumble to it. So, but I think the biggest addition is the two mappable buttons. Which, so I think that seems quite customizable, and obviously that's always good for accessibility and that kind of thing. So I think that's a really nice touch, and it's nice that you're getting mappable buttons on. Okay, I mean it doesn't come with the Switch, but you're also not having to pay, hundreds like you are for Xbox or PlayStation's equivalent to have mappable buttons. So in that respect, it's quite nice. But yeah, personally, I really like it. I think once again, they've done a really, really good job.
Cool. One of the only things that I actually dislike about the Nintendo Switch is, for my hands, I don't have massive hands, but I always found the Joy-Cons to be a little small, a little fiddly, especially when I disconnect them from the console and holding them in either hand. Paul, have you noticed a significant difference between the size of the Joy-Cons on the Switch and the new Joy-Cons on the Switch 2?
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely bigger. They're really nice. And at the moment, I don't have a Pro controller. I'm just using the Joy-Con grip. But for me, that is, at least for now, that's perfectly satisfactory. To talk about the reference what Tom was talking about there with the rumble, that's a funny thing, because I was kind of been thinking to myself recently about the PlayStation 5, the DualSense and that rumble, and how initially, booting up Astro's Playroom and everything, and how like amazing that was. Yeah, absolutely. Like a new gaming experience almost. And then how afterwards now, quite a while later on, I barely notice it whenever I'm playing anything. It just doesn't come into my mind. And with the new Switch 2, with its improved rumble, I'm not really noticing anything there. I don't think nothing's blowing my mind too much. But yeah, the new Joy-Cons themselves, in terms of form factor and usability, they're obviously, I think they are better. They fit better in the hand. They feel better made, as Tom said, and yeah, I'm enjoying it. But I probably will, once they issue some kind of nice limited edition Pro controller. And my wife's got the Tears of the Kingdom one, so I'm quite jealous about that. Once they do that, then maybe I will upgrade later on down the line. I think I have to.
And in the meantime, the original Switch controller is compatible with the Switch 2. So like if you are playing 2-player, or you want a game pad dedicated, if you're playing something that, you think, oh, this would be better on a Pro controller, you could just connect that and it would work perfectly well.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. That is a really good pro consumer move. I think that all previous Joy-Cons are usable on the new system. They could easily have locked that out, and they haven't. So I'm grateful for that. I think that's a decent move on their part.
Well, you've inadvertently given me a perfect transition into the games, not in a positive way, unfortunately, when you mentioned Astro's Playroom, which, hey, everyone, remember when you first played Astro's Playroom and you were like, wow, this is free? And it was awesome. It's like Astro's Playroom it's a killer game. It's a killer app, and it was free with the PlayStation 5. It showed off all of the new features of the new controllers, and it was amazing. So Nintendo also has this thing that shows off all the new features. It's called the Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour, and it is a launch title, and it is not free. I have not played this. I don't know if either of you have, but looking at it, I'm like, this is this is a free piece of software. Like this is a free piece of software that should have come with the system. It's not a question. There's a lot of people. This has been debated by a lot of people over the time, and the review scores can reflect that too. People are like, "Yeah, it's fine, but it's like a tech demo. Why are we paying for this?" For obvious reasons. And in this particular case, to steal another logo from the 1990s, apparently Sony does what Nintendo don't.
Yeah, I haven't played it myself. Like you say, I don't really feel the need to pay for something like that. I think it's a very Nintendo move, but maybe not unexpected. But at the same time, I think it's still disappointing. Like, especially like you'd think you'd at least put it in for your maybe if you're a Nintendo Switch Online subscriber or something like that. That would have been a nice way to do it. But I think it does seem that sort of you're making people pay for an experience to show them how they can use their own system, which seems, I don't know, it just leaves a sour taste.
Yeah, I mean, in good old Blighty, it's £8, I think, which is not a lot, but it's too much for me. I mean, I think you can get the new exclusive to the Switch racing title, Fast Fusion, which is apparently been getting great reviews, for like £12. And you can get this as it's a glorified tech demo for nearly that same price. I mean, am I going to do that? No.
In the olden days, we would have referred to this as a piece of shovelware. This is the kind of thing that you see in a bargain box at Walmart.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are here, listeners and podcasters, we are RPG gamers. We do not need to fill our time with shovelware. We've got plenty of other things to do, even on the Switch too. Yeah.
Well, we're going to obviously talk about the games that are within our coverage because that's what the show is about. However, I also just want to mention that at the moment, the system seller, the big, the thing that is the Switch 2 exclusive, and the reason why a lot of people are buying it is, of course, Mario Kart World, the new Mario Kart. Mario Kart 8, both Mario Kart 8 and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe were both massive sellers for Nintendo. They still are. It's one of the best selling games that they've ever had. And this is the new version of it. So I think they really hope that World is going to be as successful as 8 was. And they obviously decided we don't need to release this console with a Mario game. We don't need to release it with a Zelda game. We don't need to release it with a Metroid game. We can release it with Mario Kart World, and that'll be the system seller. So far, seems like that's not a terrible strategy. But have either of you played it?
I have not. I'm a big Nintendo fan, but Mario Kart's never really been my jive. But I will say it looks really impressive. I've spoken to people about it, and they're really enjoying it. And I think sometimes for us as sort of we're more in the hardcore community, sort of look at something like Mario Kart and sort of roll your eyes, oh, Mario Kart. But like we're here for the Zeldas or something like that. But I think to the general public, that's why people are buying Switch. Mario Kart and Animal Crossing were the two biggest games on Switch by far. Mm-hmm. And I think launching with a Mario Kart, clearly it's doing well for them.
It is. And honestly, it wouldn't surprise. I'm about to say something that's going to get me in big trouble and everyone's going to groan angrily. I wouldn't be surprised if they are saving something very similar to Animal Crossing in their back pocket in case there is another pandemic coming down the road or some similar thing that requires everyone to stay inside and need a social occasion that's inside their homes, because the timing of that was the reason why that game became such a massive success. So it wouldn't be surprising to me if they were hedging their bets on it. Whereas the Mario Kart is a much more, I mean, obviously there's new online play. There's the Switch 2 camera that lets you, it lets people see your face as you play. But I always think of a Mario Kart game as more of a communal experience where you're with your friends. You're basically you're in front. You're playing the GameCube with all the 4 controllers coming from the thing. That's kind of how I always thought about that. And I mean, from what I've heard, it's a great game.
Yeah, absolutely. That would make sense. I think you wouldn't be far off the mindset of Nintendo there. But yeah, I also have not played it. As I mentioned, I went for the console only, and I just can't bring myself to fork out the £8.75 for the physical copy of the game at the moment. I mean, for me, I am not the Mario Kart fan in the family. That would be Predominantly my two kids. They absolutely love it. So I do feel a bit of parental guilt for not getting the digital copy, and I probably will have to get a physical copy sometime down the line when Nintendo puts it on sale. Ha ha ha. Yeah. So, but yeah, as Tom said, it does look great, even though it's not my sort of thing. I can see why it's pulling people, and then it seems to be pulling people in at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, like Mario Kart is beloved for a reason, and I love it too. The hours that I spent playing on my DS and my 3DS, I can't even imagine how many hours I spent playing them. And I played obviously 8 as well, and I love it. It's a great game, so I'm actually pretty excited about this. I've heard that the open world is a little bit bare, but whatever, it's fine. It's apparently great. Got very good reviews. 24 players at a time is a crazy number of carts, which is awesome. And there are some other games that are coming out over the next few months that are also rather interesting, that I think, if not system sellers, at the very least, things that are probably going to be must-buys for most people, and they're Nintendo first party. So Donkey Kong Bonanza, which is I guess it's going to be the Switch 2's big platformer, since Mario's nowhere in sight.
It's like the Mario Odyssey of Donkey Kong. Yeah,
pretty much. It looks really, really cool. I've looked at it. I like Donkey Kong. I like the country games, but I prefer the Mario games. And the other one that is coming out that I can use to transition to our next section is it's not a first person. It's not a first party Nintendo game, but it is a first party IP, and that is Hyrule Warriors: Age of Imprisonment, which is going to be telling the story of what was happening to Zelda in Tears of the Kingdom. And it is it's a Warriors game essentially, which is cool. They released that with on the previous system. They kind of released a semi sequel to Breath of the Wild with Age of Calamity. So I think this is a smart move, and I would enjoy playing this. I think. I mean, I probably will at some point once I get my Switch. This will be a Switch 2, because it looks really, really good. And I think that period of Tears of the Kingdom is ripe for storytelling potential.
Yeah, I think this is definitely the sort of thing that would pull me in. And I'm not up to date on my Zeldas at the moment, unfortunately, but this would be very attractive. I've heard that the first one is maybe not canon, the story, but still apparently a very very entertaining story and gameplay experience. So yeah, if they had something like this at launch, who knows, I might even have picked it up already. Yeah,
you gotta like the Warrior series. You gotta like the Warrior series if you're gonna like this.
Yeah,
that style of gameplay needs to really appeal to you.
I see.
Yeah,
well, I'm willing to give it a try.
Yeah. Well, I have some good news for you, that if you are running behind on your Zelda games, you have a very good opportunity to catch up, because we have the Nintendo Switch 2 Edition games. So this is a series of games that Nintendo is releasing that have a lot of improvements as compared to their Switch counterparts. And some titles include Super Mario Party Jamboree, Kirby and the Forgotten Land, Pokemon Legends Z to A, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, which will be coming out in a couple of months, theoretically. And also both Zelda games, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Now, Tom, you are currently playing through these Switch 2 Edition versions of these Zelda games, and I adore both of these games. I love them. Amanda just finished Tears of the Kingdom a few weeks ago, and she loves both games too. You started playing Breath of the Wild on the Switch, and then once you got the Switch 2, you switched over to that. Now, I would love to know what the improvements are here.
Sorry, I actually started playing Tears of the Kingdom on
of course,
Switch. Yeah. And so, so Breath of the Wild is absolutely one of my favorite games of all time, like top 5, incredible. But I actually took a break from playing games right around the time that Tears of the Kingdom released. And I thought, when I came back, I thought, you know what, the Switch 2 is on the horizon. I'm sure it's going to get some sort of patch. We'll wait. And I'm so glad I did. It is, I mean, going back to both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, I didn't think they could make the games any better than they already were. And it is just incredible playing them on a 4K display. it's just something else. And, I think even in areas that previously you had a lot of like sort of stuttering and lag, which you slow down, that's all gone, and you're playing at 4K and it just feels incredible. The games look amazing. It's just, honestly, I think anyone who has any interest in Zelda, open world games, whatever, you owe it to yourself to at least try it on the Switch 2 when you get your hands on it. You do have to pay for the upgrade unless, I have the Switch. If you're a Switch Online member, you've got the more expensive version, the expansion pack. You also get it for free that way. But I can't recommend it enough. I think it just takes an already brilliant game and just turns it up to 11, to be honest.
Yeah, so you're playing Tears of the Kingdom for the first time.
I cannot put it down. It is.
Oh, it's so good.
Just incredible. That has been my past few. Whenever I've been off work since I've got this thing, it's been dividing my time between that and Metaphor. And to be honest, it's been a lot more Tears of the Kingdom.
I do not think that is necessarily a wrong choice. Having not played Metaphor and knowing that it is an exceptional game, but Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, these games can draw you in like few other things can. I personally think that both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom especially, Nintendo must be frigging wizards, because this thing played real well on the Switch. The transition from like you could jump off a sky island to the ground, go through a hole in the ground, and enter the depths, and it would appear to be seamless. The loading times were hidden, obviously, by the distance you were traveling, but the fact that they were able to pull that off on the Switch I thought was quite remarkable. Clearly, that's not going to be a problem here. There are I believe in Tears of the Kingdom, much faster loading times. There's lag issues and frame rate issues. All that is pretty much gone.
It's non-existent. It's incredible.
Yeah, I would be very upset if it had. Let's put it that way. If it had those problems still, it'd be like, okay, no. And there are a few other little differences. For example, I have no interest in it. There's now a companion app for it called Zelda Notes. And there's GPS.
I can't say I've tried that yet. I am doing the review, so I probably will download the app just to see what it's like for the purpose of the review. I think for me, obviously, part of the Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom experience is sort of that discovery for yourself. But I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that will benefit from the app, especially younger children. But no.
Yeah, I have less than zero interest in having a Google Maps experience in the land of Hyrule.
I do think it's really slightly tangential. I think it's really interesting that one of the biggest pulls for a lot of people, and definitely for me as being a bit behind, is a game that started life on the Wii U and is now 2 generations in, and still being upgraded and being a major draw, a major selling point for our latest console.
Let no one ever say that Nintendo did not believe in recycling. They are absolute masters of it. Clearly, one of the things that drives me nuts is like, you get GameCube games in Nintendo Online now, and one is available is Wind Waker, and it's like it's the original Wind Waker. And you're like, didn't you guys release like a big update of that with, much cleaner?
I was fuming. I'll be honest. Wind Waker is one of my favorite games of all time. And seeing that, I was just like, that almost writes off the possibility of that Wii U port coming. And you think, I know there was a Nintendo executive who said, you can't write it off the table. I don't think it will happen anymore. So it is a bit disappointing that, you can understand why you can't put GameCube on a system and not have Wind Waker, but at the same time, the implications of having that for the Wii U port is not good.
I think it'll happen. I don't think it'll happen for a few years. I think that's the kind of thing that Nintendo can pull out at a not E3 in the future and have everyone go bananas over it very easily. Wind Waker is a consistent crowd pleaser. Let's put it that way.
It's an interesting conversation to have, because it's like, we're calling it GameCube, so do we have to have the most authentic GameCube version of it, or could we have the one with the features? And I would probably argue you could have the one with the features, because these are not just GameCube games. They have been, they've had their graphics sharpened up. They've had several things done to them behind the scenes. So to say
they're higher resolution.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You could say that. I don't think any consumer would be disappointed if Nintendo put the Wii U version on.
Game.
But I think Nintendo know full well that they can charge a lot more money for that port. Down, and like Jono says, maybe down the line we'll get it. I think interestingly, they're in an interesting situation with Zelda now, whereas we Tears of the Kingdom to Breath of the Wild, that was about a 7-year development cycle, and we've just had the latest 2D Zelda. So it's probably going to be a long while before we get a brand new Zelda on Switch. So you do think maybe they will have to pull some ports over.
Possibly. Well, something actually I'd like to pivot from the games themselves to another topic that's been a bit of a controversy for Nintendo lately, and that is technically their game carts. So yeah, they're releasing physical games because it's Nintendo. They're not pivoting to digital only, but they are kind of sneakily pivoting to digital only because some of the cards don't actually have the games on them. They kind of work as keys more than anything. They're physical keys to download the game, which kind of defeats the friggin' purpose of having a game card. Paul, I imagine you have opinions on this as you are a physical collector.
Yeah, I am. This is the thing that does grind my gears. I think, as others have said, it feels like the worst of all worlds. You lose the convenience of digital, and you lose absolutely any point of having a physical item at all. That being the game. I think it'd only be for a very niche group of people that care about that sort of thing. But yeah, game preservation, for instance, once or if the servers go down, there is on this card that only contains an access key, and then you have to download the whole game. There's nothing on it. Once the servers are gone, it's a piece of junk. So you're adding all that plastic pollution for no purpose, and it will cause again. If I already had an original Switch, this might have been one of those things that would have at least delayed me getting the new system. In the sense that when a lot of titles are cross-platform, and you might pick Switch for the portability aspect of it, I will be certainly hesitating when there is a version of that on a different system that is a true physical copy. And I know I'm a little bit of I guess potentially a bit of a dinosaur on this issue, and this is not the way the world is going. And eventually we'll be in that all digital future. But in the meantime, I think
Paul, there's a lot of ways the world are going, which I don't want to go. There's a lot of ways the world is going. I don't want to go.
But I think in the meantime, we don't want this, this half measure. And I've heard that Capcom are classing them as digital sales as well.
Yeah, I'd heard that. I saw that the other day.
Yeah, and perhaps other companies might follow suit, and that's going to produce some kind of distorted figures about the desire to actually own something physical, and where we are, which I think, although is definitely in the minority, is still a substantial part of the market. And I think Nintendo, it's surprising that it's coming from Nintendo to start with, as being a bit of a bastion for physical collectors recently. And it's a bit sad because for some people, again, not the hardcore gamers and things, this could be potential. I know they've slapped disclaimers everywhere all over the front of the covers, but this could potentially be misleading to people going in there, picking up a cartridge and expecting that what they buy is the game on that cart. And it really isn't. It's just an empty piece of plastic.
I said this on the Switch 2 reveal episode that was a few months ago, but this is transparently an attempt to get around the amount of controversy they would get hit with if they announced they were going digital only for their console. It's clearly a way around that, whereas they're, hey, look, you can buy it. You can buy it in store. This is what you want, isn't it? And for the layperson, they'll not notice there is a controversy. They'll say, well, you can buy it in stores. I see it at Walmart. But the reality is that, yeah, it's a Trojan horse, I think, to get into the digital only future. Cannot imagine that this is going to continue into the Switch 3 or whatever the next console is in, like, oh God, how long to take the Switch to, because 8 years, 9 years, next decade, in like 2035, whenever the next console comes out. I sincerely doubt it's going to have a physical component, unfortunately.
I think you may be right. And I think we just have to compare that disastrous Xbox One reveal and the reaction that their extremely hard push towards digital only got compared to now when it's just so much more muted. And it is only niche members of the community that seem to be raising this kind of fuss. And I think it is a shame, because I'm certainly not against digital. I don't want to come across that way. I'll buy digital games usually on discount. And I'm happy with that. But I just think that they did, at least for now, I'd hopefully into the future, but at least for now, there needs to be that option, I think, so people can buy and play the games the way they want to.
Well, it's a thing it's game preservation. It's an important part of that.
Yeah, I think I really admire the people pushing really hard for game preservation. It does, these sort of moves sadden me, and some of the moves in, I think, I can't remember the name of the society, but the name in the US, they were pushing recently for rights for games akin to the ones that museums and libraries have for books. Mm-hmm. Again, in order to help with physical preservation, but there was a big industry pushback against that, and that did not succeed. And it feels of a similar light to this kind of move here as well, where we're just having that potential and those rights taken away from us slowly.
Yeah, well, that's how they do it. That's the best way to be successful at it, is to do it as slow as possible. And if you're patient, well, speaking of being patient, I want to talk about a game that I was very patient about, which is Bravely Default. So when this came out, it came out in 2012. I think it didn't even come out. It didn't come out in the West until 2013, when the For the sequel version got released for the 3DS. And I didn't play it until 2019, but I love Bravely Default. I love it. This, to me, is what Final Fantasy would have evolved into if Final Fantasy VII had never existed. Like, it really does. I mean, it features crystals. It features all of the elements of a Final Fantasy game without technically being a Final Fantasy game, which makes sense because it is technically a spiritual sequel to Final Fantasy: The Four Heroes of Light, which was a spin-off on the DS that if you play Four Heroes of Light, it plays a lot like a prototype for Bravely Default. So this game got released for the 3DS. It was followed immediately the following year by For the sequel, which indicated there was going to be a sequel. Then Bravely Default, Bravely Second came out, which was a direct follow-up to Bravely Default, same world, same characters, evolving that. And then a few years ago, Bravely Default 2 came out for the Nintendo Switch, which did feature a brand new world, new characters, still with crystals, very much like Final Fantasy. Actually, it picked up many of the elements of the previous game, but moved into a new world with new characters. So now we have Bravely Default, and this is Bravely Default. What is the title? Is frigging long, isn't it? 1 second. So the title is Bravely Default Flying Fairy HD Remaster. I don't think the HD is required in there. I think remaster covers that if it's released in 2025. But anyway,
rolls off the tongue.
Yeah, just right off the tongue. And it was released. Obviously, it's a Switch 2 exclusive. I want to play this. I want to play it so bad. I love this game. And Paul, is this your first time playing it, or is this a repeat enjoyment kind of thing?
This is my first time. First time. Exciting. I've wanted it for a really little. I do have access to a 3DS, and so I've wanted to pick this up for so long. But I'm kind of glad I didn't, because now we've got this brand new version.
Okay, I'm going to throw this out there for everyone listening. I don't know where Paul is in the game yet, but we are not going to be talking about significant spoilers for this game, because this game oh boy, does it have spoilers that can really impact your enjoyment of the game if you know them. So we're not going to be talking about any of that. We're just going to be talking about the game. So like I said, this was a game that was released it was developed in 2010, 2011, was released in 2012 in Japan for the 3DS. I think the 3DS, some games on that still look pretty. But this is completely different. This is very much it's a beautiful, beautiful remaster. So tell me, how are you enjoying it? I'm
not a huge amount of distance into the game so far, but I'm really, from what I've seen so far, I'm really loving it. I was just absolutely struck by this storybook kind of painted backgrounds everywhere, just really atmospheric. The surprisingly good voice acting from the period it came from, and the surprising amount of voice acting as well. I had to check and look, was all of this in the original version? It's like, yeah, it was. So it was just shocking.
It has one of the best line reads in gaming history, which is Agnes's murr, 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 murr.
Yeah, I haven't counted that so far. Yeah, it's great. And although I've not played the 3DS version, I have gone and taken a look at some of the comparison shots between the two. And what they've done is, I mean, they haven't reinvented the wheel. This is not by any means this is a remake or even an intensive remaster.
Wait, sorry, did I just say Agnes? No, it's freaking Adia. Why did I say? Yeah, it's Adia. Why did I say Agnes? No, Adia. Murgurgurgur. That was
Murgurgur. Yeah,
that was sorry. Brain fart moment.
No.
Sorry, I needed to jump in there to avoid angry emails being like, "You idiot."
Yes, we cannot allow these things to go into the ether, can we? No. Yeah, but I've had a look at the original shots, and not a full or intensive remaster, but they've, I think, and you can see it's based on a 3DS game. But what they have done, the amount it's sharpened up, the image now is just like crystal clear and absolutely beautiful. This is undoubtedly going to be the best way to play the game. I think it's going to be hard for anyone to dispute that. The music, the soundtrack is fantastic as well.
Revo soundtrack is I think it's honestly one of the greatest RPG soundtracks ever made.
Yeah, and I've only encountered a small part of it so far, and I think it's band Sound Horizon, isn't it, that did it.
Technically Linked Horizon. He used Sound Horizon, but he uses Linked Horizon whenever he is doing a collaboration.
Ah, right. I see.
So Titans was Linked Horizon.
Got it. And yeah, from what I'm aware that they've done, they've remastered the sound too, and that's very obvious. It's a very impressive soundscape. Specifically thinking about the Switch 2, I think where this is going to excel as well is the fact that now you're looking at this game, apparently no longer on that tiny little square screen. You're looking at it on your big TV or on your large handheld LCD screen. And that extra scope, that extra width, I think is adding something to it as well. It's bringing you into that world. And I don't know if it did it in the original, but when you stand still and it pulls out and you see the entire, that feels like that is more impactful playing it in the way that we are now. So they're really utilizing the extra screen space that they've got now, I think.
Yeah, I would be glad about that, because while it was on the 3DS and it was a bit of a looker for its time, the painterly backgrounds really translate gorgeously to HD, because it doesn't need to be sharp. It doesn't need to be astonishingly like polygon sharp, because it's a painting. So I feel like the visual design of this game would really translate nicely.
Yeah, and it does. And I think other features it makes use of as well is the fact that although we've only got an LCD screen on the Switch 2, it does support HDR. And that is very apparent with this title. When you're playing in handheld, the colors are just popping right at you. It's really in a really intense fashion, and it can. From that perspective, I couldn't ask for anything more really, and it's hitting all the right buttons in a sense of you feel like you're going on this classic adventure, as you say, linked to original Final Fantasies in that style. And what better thing to do than take that classic adventure with you on your brand new console, I would say.
Also, for anyone out there who is listening to this and they're like, oh yeah, Bravely Default does have a good soundtrack, do yourself a favor. Just go to YouTube, type in Linked Horizon Bravely Default. The first hit you're going to get is Bravely Default Live Concert, Linked Horizon, Luxembourg. Some Japanese words that I can't say. And it is a full 2-hour rock concert with Linked Horizon and live performances of all of the songs done in a rock show style. And it's one of the coolest damn things I've ever seen in my life. It is ridiculous. It is over the top. They have singers in like stylized versions of the costumes from the game. You haven't gotten there yet, Paul, but they have the Love in the Crossfire is one of the most batshit insane things I've ever seen. It's nuts. So yeah, if you are a fan of the music, at the very least, check out Love in the Crossfire. It's at the time codes are in the description there of the video.
That's my weekend sorted. Then I love watching the live concerts.
Oh, do yourself a favor though, beat the game first, because one of the beautiful things that Revo does with this is there is actually musical spoilers in this game. Like there are points of the game where themes and character themes and motifs and things, they come back in different and altered ways. So finish the game before you watch the concert, because you'll get so much more enjoyment out of watching the concert with all of the context of the game. I am really looking forward to you. Do me a favor, when you get to a certain point in the game, you'll know when it is. Fire me off a message and tell me what you think. Because I'm curious what your reaction is going to be.
I'll be in Slack in the all caps, definitely.
Yes. I am delighted that this system is doing as well as it is thus far. I'm a Nintendo fanboy. I've been my entire life. I was the person who says Sega sucks when I was a child, because that was my entire identity, because I was a child. And I have my Super Nintendo, and I hated the Genesis. It wasn't until years later I was like, oh crap, this thing actually has some good games on it. But I love Nintendo, and the fact that the Switch 2 seems to be doing as well as it is, and hopefully it can maintain this momentum, and hopefully it can develop into its own thing, because I really don't want this to sit in the shadow of the Switch for very, very long, because if it does, it will be considered to be a failure by history. And it would be nice if Nintendo broke that streak of good console, terrible console. And hopefully they will, because it sounds like this thing is it sounds like they've really, really upped their game in terms of the quality of this thing.
Yeah, I think they're on for a win here. I think it's more expensive, and I think it will it's going to be harder to get those maybe people from outside of the core audience to get quite as excited about it. But I think Nintendo is one of those companies that, you know, they have, like, we're both Nintendo fanboys, they have that magic, they have those games that people come back to and people want them for their families, and I think they're really on for a winner here.
Yeah, Nintendo is probably one of the more cautious companies out there when it comes to trying new things. But when they do, they tend to do a real good job of it. It's one of the last places left where I actually believe that a project could get canceled late into development, not because it's costing too much money, but because it's not meeting their standards of quality. And now you can see that in terms of, like, I haven't been there, but the Universal theme parks, Nintendo Land, they look incredible. So they're moving in that direction. I was actually a big fan of the Mario Brothers movie. I thought it was great.
I thought it was great. I thought it was really good. It
was a kids movie, but it's a good kids movie. I am not a naysayer when it comes to The Legend of Zelda. I would prefer it be animated, not live action, but, like, it could be amazing. It really could be amazing. And I think that Nintendo is doing things that I feel like the rest of the industry should emulate, but won't. And also they're doing terrible things too, like, you know, jacking the price of games and the whole thing with the games carts with nothing on them. Like, don't get me wrong, Nintendo is not without blame here, but they are doing a lot of things right.
No, I was just going to say I would totally agree with that, and I'm loving the actual system itself. I've got absolutely no regrets about buying that, but I think they just do need to, if it's going to, the success is going to continue, maybe address a couple of the things like the value proposition, which, you know, will be a factor for you know, many individuals and families. I have a feeling that there might be movement in that direction, and that not everything is going to come out at £75 or $80 or whatever it is.
We'll see if Sony and Xbox take a look at this and they're like, if Nintendo gets away with it, we can get away with $90 games. Nintendo might actually come out ahead here.
I think Donkey Kong's already been announced to be £65, so I think that's already less than Mario Kart, but still expensive. I think, especially, like, I think that's the issue, isn't it? Is that the Switch, Nintendo games are always expensive, and they don't really go on sale.
No,
and
they don't.
With the Switch, that was, I guess, you know, you could get them for $50, and you could get the game vouchers. So we'll see if they stick around, which sort of brought the prices down. But I think I think the issue here is going to be, you suddenly have to, I'd pay £50 for the latest Kirby game. I don't think I'd pay 65 or 70. I think it just comes down to like, I think there will be games that we have to make a decision on whether we would buy them or not, and maybe we would have had they been Switch titles and slightly cheaper. But
yeah, I would always hark back to some of the things that Jono said on previous podcasts about the dearth of AA, AAA games coming up and how indie might save the scene, and maybe to a certain extent, as it has for the original Switch, maybe indie is going to be the place to go for a lot of titles and entertainment on the new system too.
Oh, I would not be surprised, because like some of the indie games that are coming out for this thing, Deltarune is already out, which is going to be a massive RPG fan thing. But games that are going to be cross-platform that are coming out this year include Hades 2, theoretically Silksong. Like these games, I would argue Mina the Hollower, if they can capitalize off the Shovel Knight, if they can get the word out there that these are the same people that made Shovel Knight. Like these are games that I feel will benefit from being in handheld in a form that is very, very portable and lighter and more, I guess, less capital G gamer than a Steam Deck. I am not putting down the Steam Deck, by the way, but yeah, there's a reason why a lot of these games like Shovel Knight and Hollow Knight became such a massive success on the Switch, is because it was just really friggin' convenient. So I hope the same thing. And it'd be nice if they managed to get some platform exclusivity for these games for a while. Not because I like platform exclusivity.
Hades 2, I believe, is platform exclusive to, obviously it'll be on PC. It's already on PC, but I think it is platform exclusive. And what I'd really like to see with Hades 2 is what they did with the initial one, which they had the cross saves between PC and Switch. That was a massive. I'm a PC. I play on PC. And that was a massive deal for me. I don't have a Steam Deck, but being able to play Hades on the go and on my PC on the same save was great.
Yeah, Nintendo have learned some of their lessons. And I think they'll continue to learn lessons. And God, I hope that they are paying attention to everything they're getting out of this launch, because there's a lot of data there that is going to be very helpful. And if they can utilize that data properly, they will be able to improve everything that happens in the future for them. Well, I'd like to thank both of you for joining me. Actually, before I do that, do either of you have anything else you want to
add? The only thing I thought might be worth sort of adding for our listeners is there's a couple of games that got updates for Switch 2 that weren't really announced. So just a couple that are within our coverage that people might be interested in. So Hyrule Warriors: Age of Calamity. So that's the Warriors game for Breath of the Wild. That's got an update. Then you've got The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. So that's had quite a significant upgrade apparently, particularly in terms of both frame rate and resolution. Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, which is quite good considering that had a rather rocky launch. Pokemon, obviously we know that Pokemon Scarlet and Violet got an update, but so did Pokemon Legends Arceus. And also Disco Elysium received an update, apparently. Much better loading time between different areas. So I just thought it'd be worth mentioning a couple of the RPGs that did get updates that didn't really get a proper announcement for that.
100%. And also let me credit the folks at Nintendo Life with this wonderful list that they've compiled. Love Nintendo Life for a variety of reasons, one of which is a certain staff member there. But yeah, it seems like they're really moving forward with this. And hopefully it'd be cool if more Switch games got these kind of upgrades. Mind you, I sincerely doubt I think Nintendo, if they look at the Switch 2 edition data and they're going, oh crap, this is making us money, we're going to see probably some more edition games rather than just free updates. But yeah, we'll see. Anyway, folks, thank you so much for joining me today and talking about the Switch. I'm going to Switch 2. Tom, I'm going to allow you to go back and continue to play Tears of the Kingdom. Yeah, this has been a crazy couple of weeks for video game news and releases and things like that. And there are going to be a lot more games coming out this year that are going to hopefully set the room on fire, because despite the fact that I don't think it was as bad a show as people say, there was nothing really at Not E3 this year which did light the room on fire. So we're going to see. We're going to find out.
There's also a lot of sort of 2026, but we're not really going to give you a date anyway. So
yeah, my theory about that is that every single publisher is overcorrecting from what happened with Cyberpunk. But also, it gives them room to retool a game if it is getting horrible reception from the audience. Although you can only retool an extraction shooter so much. Anyway, so if you were looking for a way to support us here at RPG Fan, we've opened up a store. You can find it at www.rpgfan.com/shop. Lots of things on there. Actually, we have some new stuff coming down the pipe, which I can't mention yet, but it's going to be pretty cool. But we also have our collaboration with Hyperplay RPG, the RPG Fan Review Card Collection, and that is a showcase of nearly 300 of our review cards, as you can see on Instagram and our other social media channels, designed by Steph. I love these things. They're a great snapshot. If you don't want to read the whole review, you can look at this. So absolutely check that book out. I love it. Another way you can support us is to check out our past episodes of Random Encounter, as I hyped at the beginning of the episode. Check out our annual Not E3 extravaganza episode. We had an amazing panel, and it was a really, really, really good talk. I was so tired at the end of that episode, and I had to edit it that night because I wanted to get it out the next morning. So all the news would be very, very current. We also have Retro Encounter. And for the last few weeks, Zach, it's Zach's show and Zach's hosting it, but I am on right now with some other fine folks, and we are playing one of my all-time favorite games, Fallout New Vegas. The first episode is out now, and this is coming out on, actually, I think the next episode comes out today. So there's a chance you'll be able to listen to it, but wait, what am I talking about? It's not coming out today. We haven't recorded it yet. It's coming out on Wednesday. Let me try that again. So the first episode is out now. Next episode, I think, is coming out next week. We haven't recorded it yet, so we'll see what happens. I'm really excited to see who everyone sided with. Hopefully no one sided with the Legion. And a cool game, fun game. We also have Rhythm Encounter, which is RPG Fan's music podcast. They've been on hiatus for the last couple of weeks, but they are coming back roaring next week. The last episode was RPG title screen music. So give that a listen if you want to listen to some instant memories that you will have the second you hear that song. You'll think, oh yeah, I remember the first time I played this. If you'd like to get in contact with us here at Random Encounter, you can do so by firing off a message at podcast@rpgfan.com. I would love to hear from you. If you have any ideas for future episodes or discussion questions, anything like that, fire it off to me. You can also fire me off an email directly to jlogan@rpgfan.com, and you can find me on Blue Sky at jonologan.bsky.social. Tom, where can we find you online?
To be honest, you can't. I don't really do social media anymore, so I'm sort of the best place to find me is if I've got anything going on the site. There will be a Tears of the Kingdom review from me in the hopefully not so distant future, so check that out when it comes out.
Terrific. And Paul, where can we find you online?
Yeah, I'm semi-prepared this time. My Discord name is Lord Spiral.
It's a good name.
I'm not on there very much at the moment. A bit pretentious. I'm not on there very much, but I really plan to try and get on the Discord more often. Also on Blue Sky, I'm just me. I'm Paul Skevington on Blue Sky.
Awesome. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your friends to help us get the word out there. You can also rate us on iTunes or your other podcast players of choice. Once again, I want to thank both of you for joining me today, and I am really excited that both of you are enjoying this console. Frankly speaking, this conversation really makes me want to buy one, but I'm going to try to put that longing aside for a little while. Of course, until something else comes out, honestly. If the reviews for Donkey Kong Bonanza are as good as I hope they're going to be, it probably might be a system seller for me. But anyway, thank you both so much.
No, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, it's great. Thanks.
Anytime. And to everyone out there joining us, I would like to thank you for listening. And whatever you're playing, have fun.